This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update, episode 882, Behind the Crown, Mod Trike. Enjoy. I want to pivot back to what you said, because I don't think many people actually consider the video game creation field an artistic field, and that's really interesting you put it that way. Because normally when people think of art, they of course think of the environment art and the audio behind it, but you guys are also crafting an entire story behind the narrative of RuneScape with this. So with that, what you said about each piece of content being a piece of art makes total sense, because there's so many different artistic elements to it, and they all tap on that creative mindset.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I find really fascinating, and kind of what drew me into making games in the first place. Like, to me personally, and I know people approach games from different perspectives. Some people view them as like very personal things. Some people view them as kind of purely mechanical, it's like pure gameplay. I personally view games as a vehicle for story. Like, to me, they are a storytelling medium. And you can tell a story without any words. Lots of games do this. And the reason I class them as art is that, to me, art is something that makes you feel something about an abstract concept. That, to me, is the highest kind of most abstract, like the highest abstraction of what art is. And games do that really, really well. If you can count a novel as art, for instance, where you are reading something on the page and you are feeling something as the characters do something, games do exactly the same thing. But to me, they are more powerful because you are in there doing things. And that is like the hallmark of a game specifically, is that it is about verbs. It's about doing stuff and being there in the action. And to me, that makes them interactive stories. And I know, you get visual novels and interactive novels and that kind of stuff, but you can do that with just pure mechanics. You can have a game that is kind of, it doesn't even have to be artistic, but just the stuff it asks you to do and the mechanics it asks you to engage with can tell a story. And to me, that's what makes games art.
And when you tie that all together, I think that's your passion in particular as to why you're working on RuneScape and in the games field in general. And, I think that's a wonderful outlook to have on game design with that.
It's something that I appreciate working in a team. Like, to me, every part of the dev team, everyone's a storyteller. Everyone is trying to do something, and then especially with quests, because they are literally stories.
Yeah.
But even a boss fight is a story.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The progression of a boss fight, that is a story. And then with MMOs, particularly, you get these interesting kind of meta level stories where, instead of you just engaging with the lore of the game and the linear progression of the story in the game, you get stories that players tell each other about, oh, I did this really cool thing, or I got this really nice drop from a boss. And those kind of emergent, kind of external stories also come up. They are also part of game design. They are also part of the art of games.
Okay. So you'd say then at some point there could be a certain aspect or a certain area of an update, whether it be quest or otherwise, that is specifically designed to foster these stories amongst the player base?
Absolutely. The stuff like the nice example from Clan Quest, because I'm a member of Clan Quest, is the mini games we play.
Right.
And the kind of the shenanigans you get up to while playing a game of heist, that's a story we tell each other.
There you go.
And that counts.
And I think that is a interesting thing to factor into the design goals of this as well, because heist is pretty old at this time. So you wonder if that was part of the design back then, or if it was just a compelling game within the game, the mini game, that it fostered the players to do that. And that's a very interesting question to me, as somebody who doesn't play very many mini games and focuses more at this point around the PVM side of the equation. I can also see that now with all the various PVM bosses, whether it be the Elder God Wars things or Mazcab raids. That all works nicely together. And if I learned one thing on this episode, it's pulling that story knowledge into even things like PVM and such. So thank you for that. That's actually really interesting to hear.
it's something I'm like really, really passionate about. Like and it's what drew me to games in the first place. So I love everything about it. I love exploring it. I love getting different chances to make different kinds of games that look at how you can tell a story. Like I'm particularly fascinated with games that tell stories without words.
That was actually going to be my next question. Could you ever foresee a quest in game where there's no words used?
That would be quite difficult, actually. It is certainly possible, and I think that would be a really interesting game jam project. Like, could you make a quest that only does story through mechanics, environment, art, music, like everything but words?
Because
because RuneScape is a text-based game at heart. Like, remember, it's a graphical mud with fancy graphics. Text is a really important kind of cornerstone of the game.
It'd be a complete 180 from something, say, the needle skips.
Yeah, the needle skips, which I think is it's a very RuneScape-y quest because it's so text-heavy. But that would be a fascinating project. Like, could you make one? It would have fairly high, environment and audio costs, which is why it'd be a little bit difficult to do.
Right,
like
because
relatively text is cheaper to produce because it just needs design, editing, QA, localization, rather than a lot of environment time or audio design. Like there's a lot more involved in those kind of fields. But it could be done. I reckon.
It'd be interesting just as a prototype to see what something even in the short category could do with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows?
Especially our environment artists are fantastic at environmental storytelling. So
they
that could be a really fun project.
Yeah.
You can find full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. If you found this video useful or just enjoyed it, like and subscribe or leave a comment.